Everybody files 1,999 under prophecies that failed. Seventh month, a great king of terror out of the sky, the date arrived, the date passed, nothing fell. But read that line as a starting gun instead of a finish line and the whole page changes shape. Because somewhere else in the same 1568 volume, Nostradamus prints a length, 27 Years of War, 1999, was never meant to be the event, it was the moment the clock was set. And a 27-year clock started in July 1999 runs out in July of this year. I will do that arithmetic openly at the end. First, what kind of book prints a number at all? Les Prophéties contains almost 1,000 four-line verses. Quatrains. Nearly every one is deliberately fogged. No country, no person, no year. He scrambled the word order and wrote in a Provençal-flavored French, salted with Latin, Greek, and anagram. And he told us exactly why. In the preface addressed to his son Caesar, Nostradamus says he could have fixed a date to every single verse and chose not to because plain prophecy offends powerful men and gets the prophet killed. So when an actual number does make it into print, it sticks out like a nail in a white wall. The most famous nail is Century 10, verse 72, the only place in the whole collection where he writes a year and a month together. The year 1999, seventh month, from the sky will come a great king of terror to bring back to life the great king of the Mongols. Most people remember it as the prophecy that came and went and left nothing behind. The people who study these texts read it differently. They point out he never called it an ending. He called it an arrival, and an arrival needs a duration attached. Which brings us back to that page, Century 8, verse 77 in full. The Antichrist very soon annihilates the three. 27 years his war will last. The unbelievers are dead, captive, exiled, with blood, human bodies, water, and red hail covering the earth. Two hard numbers in a book that hides everything else, 3 and 27, no modern editors slipped those in. They sit in the 1568 Lion printing in black ink, and you can pull scans of that edition out of a library catalog this afternoon and look at them yourself. So who was writing this? Michel de Nostradamus, born in 1503 inches, Saint-Rémy de Provence, into a family of converted Jews. He trained at Montpellier, one of Europe's serious medical faculties, then spent years working plague towns across the south of France in an era when the standard treatment was bleeding the patient, which he refused to do. And while he was out treating other people's families, plague took his own wife and his 2 children. The prophet, everybody quotes, started out as a doctor who lost the argument with a disease. And he was no hermit, shouting in a market square. In 1555, the year the first prophecies appeared in Lyon, Queen Catherine de' Medici summoned him to Paris to explain his own verses at court. 9 years later, Charles IX made him counselor and physician in ordinary to the king, a salary, a title, and access to the throne room. Then, on the 2nd of July, 1566, his secretary Jean-Aimé de Chavigny recorded what Nostradamus had told him the evening before. "You will not find me alive at sunrise." He was right. They found him on the floor beside his bed. 2 years later, in 1568, a Lion printer issued the complete edition all 10 centuries, including the 877 page, with the author safely in the ground and unable to explain a single line of it. That is still the version scholars work from. And here is where this stops being one dead Frenchman's private obsession. Because he is not the only man who wrote a year down, sealed it in a book, and then died waiting for it to arrive. Before we leave his desk, one more printed number, and this is the uncomfortable one. In the Epistle to Henry II, dated 1558, Nostradamus writes that persecution of the church will run up to the year 1792, which they will believe to mark a renewal of time. In September 1792, revolutionary France abolished the monarchy, and the new republic threw out the Christian calendar completely and restarted counting at year 1. A renewal of time. He put that number in print 234 years before it happened. That one hit is why even careful skeptics go quiet around the printed numbers, while happily dismantling everything else. And the same epistle gives the whole book a hard outer edge. He states that his prophecies run to the year 3797, not forever, not vaguely. A closing date, 17 centuries from now. Think about what that says about how he saw his own work. He believed he was reading a fixed sequence with a start and a finish, and he was simply reporting positions along it the way a physician reports a pulse. Now, the others. Rome, 1595. A Benedictine monk named Arnold Wyon publishes a manuscript he credits to Saint Malachy, an Irish archbishop who died in 1148. It's a list of 112 short Latin mottos, one for every pope from 1143 onward. And the last entry isn't a motto at all. It's a paragraph. In the final persecution, Peter the Roman will feed his flock through many tribulations, after which the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. For 4 centuries, that closing paragraph was a curiosity. Then the list ran out in our lifetime. Pope Francis, counted by most readings as the final entry, died on the 21st of April 2025, the day after celebrating his last Easter. On the 8th of May, the conclave elected Robert Prevost Leo XIV, the first American pope in history, and on a strict count of Malachy's list, there's no line left for him. The page under Francis is blank. The Church, for the record, has never endorsed any of this. Second name, and this one, comes with no incense at all: Isaac Newton. In the National Library of Israel, there's a manuscript cataloged Yehuda 7.3, written around 1705, in which the man who gave us gravity does arithmetic on the book of Daniel. He converts 1260 prophetic days into 1260 years, dates them from the conquest of the 3 kings in the year 800, and writes that the period will end AC 2060. The inventor of calculus named a year. And his reason for doing it is the strangest part. He wrote it, he said, to put a stop to the rash conjectures of fanciful men, people who kept announcing the end of the world and embarrassing Scripture every time nothing happened. His cure for doomsday prophecy was a later doomsday date. Third item, 1994, Rome. 2 Italian journalists, Enza Massa and Roberto Panatti, pull a codex out of the Biblioteca Nazionale Centrale, shelf mark Fondo Vittorio Emanuele, 307 watercolor paintings, almost no explanatory text, and a note claiming Nostradamus painted them and his son Caesar delivered them to Rome. The pictures are a bestiary of collapse. A turning wheel, a broken crescent, popes holding blades, a figure with 3 faces and no explanation underneath. And around this small pile of documents sits an audience that keeps growing. Outlets that would never print a horoscope, Sky History, Gulf News, the wire services now run annual explainers on what these texts supposedly say about the coming year. We covered Baba Vanga's 2026 readings in an earlier video. Today's question is narrower and harder. What do the dated texts actually say about this specific year? Here's what the interpreters put on the 2026 shelf, and watch the wording rather than the headlines. One quatrain reads, 7 months great war, people dead through evil. Rouen, Evreux, the king will not fail. 7 months, not 7 years, not a vague season, a specific count, in a book that almost never counts anything. Now set that beside the only dated verse in the entire collection, which specifies the 7th month. The text keeps circling the number 7, and nobody has produced a clean explanation for why. Then, the swarm. The great swarm of bees will arise, by night the ambush, read as one power collapsing, while another quietly takes its place. A few lines away, a great man struck down in daylight by a thunderbolt. And in verse 226, the Ticino, a river in Switzerland, of all places overflowing with blood, because of a favor a city grants, Neutral Switzerland, drowning. Of every image in this book, that's the one that makes even hostile readers slow down, and 2026 has already delivered a sign of its own. On the 1st of July, 2025, a survey telescope in Chile logged an object moving far too fast for the sun to hold on to. They named it 3I, Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar visitor in recorded history, a thing that formed around another star. NASA classifies it as a comet. On the 16th of March this year, it swung past Jupiter at roughly 53 million kilometers, almost exactly the edge of Jupiter's gravitational reach. Harvard's Avi Loeb kept a running list of 22 anomalies. Then it faded and left. It is not coming back. So line up the years instead of the vibes. Malachi's list has no line left after 2025. Nostradamus's only dated verse starts a 27-year count in 1999. The Lost Book's final images show a wheel closing. Newton is the deliberate outlier. He lands on 2060, and he shows his working, which is the single most honest act anybody performs in this entire story. Different centuries, different faiths, no contact between any of them. 3 of the 4 crowd into the same narrow stretch of calendar. Now the part that doesn't hold up. Malachi's mottos appear nowhere in the historical record. For 447 years he died in 1148. The list surfaces in 1595, and they fit the popes beautifully right up to 1595, then get noticeably vaguer, which is a very familiar shape. The Lost Book is worse. Its imagery is lifted from a 14th century manuscript, the Vaticinia de Summis Pontificibus, made 2 centuries before Nostradamus was born. The postscript dates to 1629. The covering note can't be earlier than 1689. He died in 1566. And the flat truth about the headline claim: Nostradamus never wrote the digits 2026. Not once, anywhere. There is no page with that year printed on it. The year is arithmetic performed by readers on top of numbers that he did print. Which is exactly why this refuses to close cleanly, because the numbers he printed are physical objects. 1792 is on the page, and 1792 handed us a country that abolished time and started counting again. 1999, 7th month, is on the page. 27 is on the page. Nobody added those later. So here's the arithmetic I promised you. His only dated verse doesn't just say 1999, it says the year 1999, 7th month July. Add the 27 years printed in verse 877 and the count doesn't land on 2026 inches general, it lands on the 7th month of 2026, this month, the one you are sitting in right now. Newton's number is still 34 years out, Malachi's page under Francis is still empty, and Nostradamus printed a beginning and a duration, then nothing after it. No verse describes what follows the 27th year. Why would a man who dated almost nothing bother to date a start and leave the ending blank? Tell me what you think that silence is doing there. Thanks for sticking through to the end. Your support means the world. Like, share, subscribe, 3 quick taps.